What's up? This is Travis McCoy.
Hi, this is Ryan from One Republic.
What's my favorite station?
Authenticity Radio with Slade Sutter.
I tune in to you.
The best of the best of the best.
Just waking up in the morning and to be well. Quite honest with you, I ain't really sleep well. You ever feel like your train of thought's been derailed? That's when you press on, lean in. Half the population just waiting to see me fail. Yeah, right, you better off trying to freeze hell. Some of us do it for the females, and others do it for the retail. But I do it for the kids, life through the tower in on. Every time you fall, it's only making your chin strong. And I'll be in your corner like Nick, baby, till the end of when you hear a song from that big lady.
And now, your host, who has the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper, Slade Sutter.
Hey, welcome. Grab a seat anywhere. No, we don't have any menus. The only thing we have today is the freedom to express who you truly are. We call it Authenticity Radio. You'll like it, don't worry. Let me go grab the host. He's got the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper. He's a good guy. Slade Sutter.
And thank you very much. This is Slade Sutter, broadcasting from the Authenticity Radio studios here in Barcelona, Spain.
Look lonesome shining through the trees. Don't the moon look lonesome shining.
Have you ever heard of educational activism? Well, today I have a person who has earned the title educational activist. Delia Busby is from Colorado Springs, and she's broadcasting from Colorado Springs today. And I would like to welcome you to Authenticity Radio.
Thank you. I thank you along with all of the audience that's listening to the two of us.
Yeah, I thank them too. It's nice to be here, and it's nice to have an opportunity to showcase you, Delia. It's very important to take pause every once in a while and find people who are actually doing great work out there. And giving them some airtime. And I just want to trumpet your horn here for a little while. So Delia, please tell us what is it that you do, and what is social change?
I am an educational believer. Being a person of color myself, I understand that often there's not an understanding that everybody's got a way of learning, everybody's got a way of contributing. And I see myself as someone who's been able to facilitate understanding of the gifts that everyone has in the educational setting. I've had to be interpreter, protector, innovator, team member, team leader, and wear whatever hat is needed to help people to thrive, help people to learn, help them to be included. So I feel like Sojourner Truth. I get out there and do the best I can to say we can make this work.
Well, so how long have you been doing this?
I am what I call my 50th year. I'm a third-generation educator, coming from a family where there was a passion for getting it right and doing it effectively. So I had very good role models, true believers, in fact. They were not activists in the same sense that I have been, because I got into the political parts of it in terms of encouraging parents to demonstrate for equity, encouraging parents that if you're being excluded, one of the ways to get the attention of the system is to remember they get paid for the kids being in school. Keep your kids home. So if they won't listen to you, understand that keeping that child from being there a particular day can help you to make a point, because enough kids out is a cost to a system over time. Okay. So, I've done things like that, the kind of the political things on occasion, but there's more to it.
Why are you what brought you into this direction in the first place?
Because the children that are most likely to be seen as unable or unintelligent, untalented, ungifted, are kids that don't look like the major culture in America. And I saw that as long as you didn't say, wait a minute, Jose can read, Jose can be an A student. As long as you didn't go on and challenge the belief that different means dumb, then that would be the norm. So I could only be quietly effective in helping kids to get a toehold in the system. I could only be quiet about it for so long, and after a while, you really have to give voice to it. So then I started to become like a leader. For a while, I was just in my classroom being fair to all kids. And by becoming a leader, moving into administration, heading organizations like the Black Educators and other organizations. I've served on many boards and leadership roles. I could then, when called upon, for instance, the Department of Justice came into the district, and they were looking for a way to set up a mediation, and they contacted me.
Imagine that. Contacting you, Delia. Wow. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the quiet person, I really am. Well, they contacted me, and I became the facilitator for bringing the Teachers Association, the district administration, the Board of Education, the Department of Justice, and other factions in the community together to negotiate allowing kids to go to school all over the district. At that time, they were only, if they were children of color or poverty, allowed in the south end of the district. So through the mediation, I was able to help those families break out of that little geographic boundary so they could access the whole system. And similarly, the teachers, if you were a teacher of color, you were down in the ghetto and you could not teach other places. You were stigmatized. So by working with the Department of Justice and the school district, it led to more fluidity for people. And over time, change occurred, and the activism was less needed because the culture was beginning to change within the system.
Okay, now, Delia, did you when you talk about activism, you're not talking about battles and war, are you?
No.
It sounds like you're educating the educators.
Trying.
And it sounds like, I don't know. I'll ask you. Oh. Are you using empathy as a tool?
Oh, yeah. Well, the reason throughout time that I've been able to get people to talk to each other is because I'm a trusted person. And to be trusted, you do have to understand. Put the shoe on the other foot. Understand the fear. Understand the reluctance. Work through fear to trust, and model trustworthiness in your interactions with people. Be a reliable person that you would like to go to coffee with and have a good conversation.
Oh, nice.
So,
trustworthy.
Yeah. And I think that for me, it's been important that if we speak to each other, whoever we are, that I'm honest with you, that I'm compassionate with you, that I'm not going to do you wrong. And I think that goes a long way with people. And what I found through decades with children is they sense people very intuitively. You don't.
Yes, they do.
It's like your dog.
Yeah.
Your dog knows pretty much who to bark at and who not to, in some levels. So I don't have a glib answer for you. I just know my truth.
Okay, so you're putting yourself at a tremendous risk in one hand by putting everything on the table as it is.
True.
And it sounds like in that process you're being tremendously transparent in your in your effort to communicate.
Yes.
And so this is activism in the educational field, educational activism.
Working from within the system, people, had to believe that you were not going to try to tear the system down, and that you weren't going to try to make them look bad either.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bit of a tightrope, but I think that the key to me is caring, a caringness.
Yeah, and you tell them that right out, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, because truth is a big facet to communication and change under these circumstances, because this is grassroots. This isn't the edict from on high. This is starting at the lowest levels within the classroom, within the schoolhouse, of evolving people to understand that all
I just
kids
love the way you say that. Evolving people to understand.
Yeah.
That is really powerful. Okay, so evolving people to understand. I'm sorry, go ahead. I just love it.
It sounds like, oh man, this girl thinks she's smart. But what it is, it's just an old truth. It's an old awareness of how things are and how they could be. There's a tendency to think that history is only written, but there's a verbal communication of history and culture that is transcendent to writing it down. And I think that the older your culture, the more verbal the passage of that culture forward may be.
And it seems to be almost cross-generational, isn't it?
Yes,
that
absolutely.
Passes on from generation to generation.
The time you spend talking with grandma and grandpa, for instance, in my case, both my grandfather believing in the importance of education. He worked in a cotton company, but he left my son $500 to go to college, which my son did use to go to college. He went to CU Boulder and has moved on to make his contribution in society by virtue of being a college graduate. But what my grandfather was messaging, because, he only saw my son, who's now 43, as a baby, and he left him that $500 to go to school. Look at the message that he's sending to this child. And we kept a picture of the check and told the story of what Grandpa had done.
Oh, dear.
That's one part of it. Now, on my grandmother's side, she was a maid. And she would call me, she'd say, Bliss, you've got to stay in school because you will not be a good maid. And she told I was not maid material. And she said, you're pretty good at ironing, but, So what's the verbal message there? That I'm not going to have talent at what she's doing.
Yeah.
She didn't have a big speech. She just was pretty, practical.
She sounded fun, too.
Yeah. So I stayed in school. She encouraged me to do so. I had an aunt on both sides, my Aunt Sadie Mae, my Aunt Delia. Well, Aunt Delia was a premier educator in Central High School in Galveston, Texas for 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and she would talk to we grandnieces and nieces and nephews and encourage us to stay in school. But she was also modeling what you get from staying in school and being in school. And on the other hand, we had the other aunt. I'm trying to remember where I was going with the two aunts.
But this modeling that they have done is incredible, as well as your parents. Was it your grandparents?
My grandparents.
Yeah.
Now my mother, because it's I don't want to be a bad person, but my mother said, "Well, look, Bliss, you might as well go into this education because I know your aunts, and they're just not that bright." So her position was I could do it, but she went at it from the perspective of what she saw. And the fact is, my aunts were bright. They weren't just, they didn't seem so to my mother. And so within the family, there were people from other generations, including my grandmother's generation, who were educators. My grandmother's oldest sister went to Prairie View University in Texas and finished as a teacher. Now, you know how long ago that was? So the stories to bliss the child was coming from these individuals. And you'll notice, I don't come from angry people. I come from people who understood how to get through, how to attain an education. They were property owners, how to progress in life, but they were not mad. They were resourceful, committed, honest, authentic, and caring.
Authentic. You said the A word.
Yeah, very authentic.
And very empowered, too, because this, the message of modeling, again, is each time someone took the time and listened to this audience, every time you take the time, we don't know the power that we really do have to change because of our words, to change somebody else's life or to impact someone else's life.
Well, we have to be the message. It's you can read a book, but can you be the book? And this is if I go too far from the path, please pull me back. This is what's troubled me about people who go into public education, and they go to the university and the professor reads from the book and he says blah 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 blah. But if that individual then has to come down from the pedestal and walk that talk, often there's a disappointment. So it's very important to me that we be able to walk the talk and that we be able to be the message. I think that people, either adults or children, get a lot more from people that aspire to be the best person that they can be by being around those people, seeing what they do and how they do it.
Rather than projecting an image that others want to see.
Yeah, there's some songs, where they'll say, to be real. Being real is much more important than people recognize. You don't need to wear a mask. Coming back to the word authentic, if you are authentic, that is enough. And
Delia, how frightening that is. I mean, to take off my masks, what are you asking me to do?
Yeah, and I think that, and I'll speculation 101 here, people are afraid of rejection. Yeah. And if you're not conforming to the agreed upon face, then you're not going to be included in the clique or the posse. You're going to be the guy outside of that. And how do you make that okay? You've got people like Thoreau, who went off into the aloneness in order to get in touch with himself. Well, he wasn't part of the crowd. He was a man whose name we know now because he dared to be real and he dared to be authentic and transparent. That's why we still read him, I think.
I had a good friend of mine who mentioned the importance of being able to recognize that we do not have to belong to groups necessarily, that we have a choice to rather embrace groups, which means that you're embracing the people that belong to groups or cliques or types of thinking. And by embracing, it seems like we can understand. There's a sense of, understanding. There's a sense of empathy to what the group understands. However, where am I in the embrace? Well, I'm on the outside. What do you think of that?
I think it for many, many people, the outside is a lonely place. And here's where I think the real growth comes, and that is looking at your values of what you believe and looking at your person and your purpose. How do you work with that sense of I'm not included and still be the you want to be, you've got to start thinking differently. You've got to start redefining within you to make that work, because the answers are seldom external. They're usually internal. And I think that's why times for reflection, times for meditation are important to include in your daily life, to allow you to integrate you. You've got this world around you where things are maybe very crazy, and you want to be that center of peace, that center of growth, that center of hope. You've got to have that person being developed within you, by you, because they're not those people that are going to make us who we are. We make ourselves. And this is a message that I give to children. I don't care if you come from a dysfunctional family. That's not an excuse for you to not go on and be the best person that you can be. I have many of my students now are adults.
Oh.
And yeah, and they'll come back to me at a point when life is going crazy, and we'll talk a little bit about that crazy, and work it through, and it's like, what are you trying to get done here? What are the outcomes you're seeking? And the big thing that'll come in is how the Tao of how they get there. Now, you can get there ugly, or you can get there in that sweet, compassionate, empathetic way that's even more powerful, because you don't bring out the Uzi to get where you're going. You use other skill sets to get where you're going. And we have those adult conversations. And then, I've seen that student for 10 years, and they'll go away because they come back for just a little reminder of how to be who they want to be. And
there's trust involved.
Well, yeah, it's a very difficult, to the extent that, and I'll be reminded too, if I forget that peace that I want to model and that strength that I want to model, people will say, that's not you, Delia, because they want me to be the better person, not the worser person. And we'll talk about it, and I'll say to them, this is not my finest moment. It's not. I'm allowed that. But people really do want to see a higher road traveled to know that they can do that too.
Yeah, you mentioned that offline when we were talking. You mentioned the road less traveled, and
yes,
and so that is an important symbol for you.
It is. If I had gone with the pack, and I had people who'd say, well, what are you complaining about? You were the first this, you were the first that, you're in the pioneering, the first this and the first that, is your problem. And I will say to them, that's not enough. If you're not leaving footprints, if you're not creating legacy, if you're not showing a way, your personal attainment has no value, because it's only for you. To me, in that conversation with others, society grows from its best to its best. And if you're not always...
Say it again. I love that. Say it again. I'm serious. I just love that.
Okay. Society grows from its best. And it really wants to integrate that. And at some levels, people know that. They may fuss, they may fight, but the reason we as a species have grown and become more intelligent is because of the best among us and what they shared with all of us. It's a collective growth.
I can understand how successful you are by listening to you, and I'm sure I could share this with our listeners. You speak to the human person.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't speak to titles.
No. No. Power is something that everybody can have. And things are set up so that only certain people in society seem to have power and the rest are mucking about. And that's simply not true. You can go into many settings and encounter the really powerful person. They're not noisy. If you speak to them, you will often find they have a sense of serenity, that they are centered, that they are caring, and you know them when you see them. Mm-hmm. Those are powerful people.
Yeah, at least you almost feel them, feel people.
Yeah, exactly. That's
it's like, oh,
thank you.
Yeah, Delia, she felt right. Yeah, just talking with her. Yeah. You still feel right.
Well, and then I think in society, for people to feel that you're not trying to get something from them, but being for them. Mm. And for me, a part of that life journey includes being vicarious.
And respect.
There's the key word.
Yeah, you're really pushing respect.
Yeah.
Without even mentioning it.
Well, be the message.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't even know that I could talk about respect, but I think that you're right, that essentially if you don't approach each person, each child, with the understanding that, for one, they're the best person they can be at that moment in time, and honoring that, I don't know. I just can go back and say the kids know it when they see it. Mm. And as adults, they've come back on occasion for a little push in the direction they want to be in life.
Mm-hmm. And also the kids, they know it when they hear it. Delia, when you're offering an invitation to come back home, because this is what I hear you're doing, you're saying, you know what, with each child that comes across your way, or young adult or adolescent youth that comes across your way, you are extending an invitation to them, saying, you know what, don't forget about home. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you go ahead and take another look at this place? Because that place, I think you're going to like, if you allow it to happen.
I would take it a step further, that sometimes there's a falling into dysfunction because you've moved away from your core values and you've lost sight of what's important to you in that sense. And if you don't get back to where you need to be, you're going to get sick in some fashion. And I think that sometimes people know this, and it's not at a conscious level, and they're struggling to get back in alignment with their core values because they've lost sight of them. They've moved away from them, and they're feeling this tugging. And then that's the point when they'll start looking for someone to help them to get back to where they want to be within their core, within their being. Mm. And they're right to seek that center again.
Mm-hmm. And what better to have a model who is already working there from that center?
Well, what do we got? We got 60-40 here.
Keep working, baby. This is great. I love it. What about success stories? Do you have any success stories for me?
Let me think. I had thought about that. I'll give you a simple one. Okay. We worked with a youngster who was a special needs guy. And we did this in the form of a program that we called maybe the Absence Addiction Program. And we assigned a military guy to be his once-a-week in-home tutor. And that started while this youngster was in middle school and ended when this youngster was an 11th grader in high school. And usually that movement from middle school to high school is a tough transition. Mm-hmm. But that tough military guy and that special needs youngster, they made it. He graduated. That's a tough journey for a kid that doesn't really have the toolkit as full as it needed to be. And to me, that's a success of the school system, because that was done under a special funding that I persuaded them to give to help a population of kids that were in that model. Now, all kids that are struggling are not special needs. They're usually of average intelligence. And so what we would do is take the kids that had the most failing grades and ask the school system to allow us to work with them in our way. And we worked with hundreds of kids who met that profile because we did it our way. We found a way to click with them, and the system was good enough to allow us to work with those kids over years. And we were external to the school system. We were not within it. We were external to it. And I might say that this happened after I sued the school system.
Yeah, they were very giving, weren't they?
It wasn't a part of the negotiation, but the success with children couldn't be denied. And that's where the awards came from. I didn't take the standardized tests where kids did better. I didn't go and fake their diplomas. They earned those diplomas. And to the extent that it was outside expectations, the success couldn't be denied.
Mm-hmm. And I just can't wait, Delia, I just can't wait until education or intelligence is expanded, to the emotional level, to the spiritual level, to educational, the intellect is so linear. And we're so much more. And these kids, they probably have great capacities in other levels and struggling in this linear part that's kind of necessary too.
Well, let me just plug in with you. We created, I'm a great listener. And so I listen and then I'll try to come back with, well, what does it look like this? So at a certain point, we created a design called the absence addiction model. And this is over 20 years ago, so I'm not really doing this now, but it still worked. And what we did is we took the kids that were least successful and said to them, coming back into school, do you think you may be addicted to not going to class? Yeah.
Wow, you're speaking the language.
Yeah. And so would you join our absence addiction group? And they've immediately renamed it the Skippers group.
Skippers. Yeah, good.
The Skippers group. Mm-hmm. And we had people volunteering, the military, the retirees. They would come and work with the Skippers groups. We had 10 of those. And they self-selected. They said, well, look, next time I come to this group, I want to bring the people I skip with. Is that okay with you? And we said, well, sure. And I tell you what, the evolution of the Skippers group in that school led to the school being recognized as one of Colorado's overachieving schools because our demographic was poor. Mm-hmm. We were surrounded by gangs and drug dealers, but our kids were having one of the highest retention rates in the state of Colorado. Wow. And it goes back to what you said about the spiritual needs. Those kids needed to form community within the school setting, not without the school setting. And when you gave them a safe harbor within the school setting, guess what? Their attendance improved, their grades went up, and some of them went on and went to college.
Mm-hmm. And I felt understood in the process.
And respected.
And I gave something back.
Yes.
Wow, Delia, thank you for your work.
Well, thank you for asking. You're probably the first person in all these years who asked. I haven't done this kind of interview.
Oh, dear. I thought everybody.
Well, no, only you.
Wow. The power of presence that you transmit, even all the way across the salty waters between us, Colorado and Barcelona, you really do have a presence to you. Calming, real, inviting, and I would dare to say hospitable.
You know, when you have been through the storm, you understand the storm. And also that you can survive the storm.
Understand.
And that's all.
If a listener is listening, a potential young listener who's a student and says, oh, you know what, she would be a wonderful person to contact. Or if there's somebody listening that would like to get involved in educational activism, how do they contact you, Delia?
Just go to my website, Adventures in Learning K-12, and I can be reached through there.
Adventures in Learning K12.com. Great. And so that's the way to get a hold of you.
Yes.
And Delia, I'm dying to ask you. Well, I guess I am dying, but hopefully it'll be put off for a few years.
Not now.
Okay, in a while. What is your message that you would like to deliver to humankind?
Oh, that love is enough. People think they have to go find answers in books. I think there's a certain amount of synergy and creativity in being driven by love of people that helps you to find answers. And you can start there.
I love it. Love is enough.
Love is enough.
At least to begin with. Delia Busby, thank you for joining us on Authenticity Radio. And would you please consider rejoining us in the future?
Oh, thank you. I'd love to.
This is Slade Suter. Until next time, be authentic, be true, be an educational activist in your own right, and be free.
There was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people.
Who are these people?
Authenticity Radio. Stimulating and transparent. Real people and real authentic talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get real.
What are you prepared to do?
Guys, I'm bringing the party to you.
Slade Suter Live.
Conflict is a choice you know.
Whoa, oops. Watch it. Sorry.
In order to gain a new perspective and how to resolve conflict in your organization, business, or family, go to AuthenticityRadio.com. All right, enough.
Come on! This is Authenticity Radio.
Authenticity Radio with Slade Suter.